This is Mad Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is and this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast.
Still.
Yep. It's funny because you don't hear this part.
Yeah.
This will be edited in post.
Yep. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We are live on location at an undisclosed bookstore that doesn't give us money, so we're not going to reference what it is. We are a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find more of our work at ObsessiveViewer.com. You can also like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer. And, and also episode sponsor for this week is, of course, Horror Movie Yearbook. A great horror movie podcast that discusses horror movies by the year that they're released and contextualizes them to the pop culture and current events of that year. So check them out at HM Yearbook on Twitter and at horrormovieyearbook.com. And we have a very special episode today. Tiny, how are you doing?
I'm terrific.
Great, I'm doing well. And guests, how are you doing?
Awesome.
Nice.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Nice. So we've got Tony Troxell. I almost said Tony Andreko and Matt Troxell.
Whoa. There's no ring on it. There's no ring yet.
It's legal now, guys. It's legal.
Anyway, we have Tony Troxell, who has been on the podcast numerous times, and Matt Andreko, who has listened to the podcast numerous times. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Actually, are you also a patron?
I am
Yes.
a Patreon.
I think we're like probably at least half, if not 100% of your patrons.
You're like
we?
75%.
75%. I couldn't remember.
I didn't have to pay $100 to get into be on the podcast
That's
one.
true.
I think now I'm
Wow.
indebted to you guys.
That's true.
I think you're the only person who remembered that amount of money for that exact thing, because I had no idea. I thought it was like $20.
I say paid attention.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that reward tier too, and the only reason that I have it on there is that I kind of shamelessly copied that from a podcast that is wildly more successful than we are. So I will send you that invoice though for the $100.
But we are here outside a bookstore with a coffee shop, and we're all enjoying our beverages. So
Yes.
don't mind the slight pauses that he's probably
Yes.
going to edit out in post
will.
to make me look like an ass. But
Done.
I'm just enjoying my frozen hot chocolate.
I'm
This was a
I'm
very
enjoying
good
my
choice.
pumpkin spice latte.
I'm drinking straight whiskey
He's
out of the
not.
bottle.
God,
No,
he's
I got
tiny.
a
He's not.
macchiato.
Oh, good job.
Yeah.
And Matt, what did you get?
I got a very fancy Coca-Cola from a bottle.
It says
nice.
Megan on it.
Two fried chickens.
It does.
Oh shit,
and
it
a
does say
Coke.
Megan on it.
Okay, anyway, none of these people are giving us money. We are here to talk about It, the 2017 movie that was just released, directed by Andy Muschietti. I believe I butchered the hell out of that name.
Muschietti? I don't know. I
Muschietti,
think you're pretty close.
Sure, thank you.
Italian.
so-
He's Italian.
Sure,
Let's just say he's Italian.
I think so.
It means you have to do it with your hands.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Machete.
Italian.
So anyway, the movie stars Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, Jaden Lieber as Bill Denbrough, and a bunch of other people, including Finn Wolfhard as Richie Tozier he was in Stranger Things last year.
Yep.
So yeah, of course it is based on the novel by Stephen King,
What is?
which it
Classic.
of course.
Had to get it out of the way.
We're using his equipment. Don't antagonize him. Don't antagonize him.
I own you.
He's a patron. But anyway, so we just came out of the movie theater. We had our Facebook group's event screening that actually had people in it. People came. It was awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
it really
it was very cool. It was us four, Tiny's fiance, plus her friend from work, and also Andy, longtime listener, was there too.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would like to think that everyone else in the theater was also a listener.
In spirit, at least.
They're too worried to come up to see you.
Yeah,
You're very
exactly.
intimidating.
Yes.
Oh, exactly. Especially with my Pennywise shirt that I'm wearing. So yeah. Yeah. So anyway, and so speaking of Stephen King and everything, of course, you can also check out our new podcast called Tower Junkies, which is a podcast devoted to the Dark Tower and Stephen King as a whole. You can find that at towerjunkiespod.com. We'll have another episode about it as well. And speaking of which, I don't think I've given you guys the business cards yet.
Ooh, yeah.
Here's my business card.
Because this is the
for it.
perfect time to be doing it as we're recording.
It is?
Yeah.
You sack.
Okay, I'm taking that back now. Okay, that is no, it's actually too nice to not give out. Anyway, so let's kind of go around and talk about
This has a phone number on it.
It does. It does.
boy.
Yes, and it is in several of the Stephen King books that are at this particular bookstore establishment.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's go around and talk about our history with Stephen King really briefly, or at least you guys can. And then, have you read it, and what were your expectations for the film, and then we can go into our review. First time guest, Matt Andreko, and patron. Would you kick us off there?
Well, I guess history with Stephen King, I have very little history. Mm-hmm. I had just recently started reading Dark Tower. I finished it. And now reading it. I had seen a couple of the movie adaptations when I was growing up. I think probably Pet Sematary, just a couple others that I just don't remember. And, my history with Stephen King's not very big.
Okay. With whatever, like, with your history or your limited history, how do you feel about Stephen King? Like, did you, how much of The Dark Tower did you read first of all?
I've just read the first book.
Okay, gotcha. And, which we will be raffling off at SHOCKTOBER in Irvington on October 6th, just saying. Anyway, and yeah, how do you feel about the adaptations you've seen before this one from an hour ago?
Well, I've liked the adaptations I've seen. I can't say that I've read the books of them to compare to. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it was a long time ago even, so I don't really remember a ton of them. I remember thinking that they were very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I'm probably a horrible person for this.
No worries. That's great. Awesome. And then, Tony, what is your, connection to Stephen King?
Well, like we talked about when I was talking to you guys about the movie That Shall Not Be Named, because it was never actually made.
Yeah, they never.
Yeah.
This is the only theatrical.
That episode few episodes ago that didn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I read a lot of Stephen King back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was one of the books that I read. Of course, I saw the miniseries, the classic with Tim Curry as Pennywise. I saw that when it aired. That I really enjoyed. Because it also had, Harry Anderson and John Ritter and all them. But that was really enjoyable. But, I haven't really read or watched anything about this in, 20 years.
Wow.
So it was kind of cool coming in and going, I vaguely remember that. Mm. I remember that. Yeah, okay, that's cool.
It'd be cooler if it was 27 years.
Yeah, but you take what we can get.
Why can't you be 47 instead of 40?
I'm feeling old enough, man. Thank you very much. I love you too.
You're welcome.
Nice. And Tiny, we've talked a lot about our
We
history.
have.
Go ahead.
Summer 99, literally. I spent my summer riding my bike back and forth to the library getting Stephen King books. Cujo and Christine and The Shining, and fell in love with Stephen King, and I've been reading him on and off ever since. And the movies are kind of hit or miss, but there's some gems in there, some of the adaptations. So he's my favorite author. It has become one of my favorite books. The Dark Tower is my favorite thing. So to say I'm a Stephen King fan is an understatement.
And I am right there with you. I don't have that deep of a history with Stephen King, because I got started with The Shining when I was 14 or 15. And, I've been, like you have been kind of reading off and on ever since, and read The Dark Tower, loved The Dark Tower, read The Dark Tower twice, did not see any movie because there was no movie that was made. I did. That was anyway. We've exceeded our quota for amount of Dark Tower talk on the Obsessive
In fact,
Viewer.
that was one of the requirements for using this equipment was we were not going to get into a rant about Dark Tower.
Yeah.
So let's compare the Nibald Street with the House Demon in the Dark Tower. No, I'm kidding. But anyway,
I was. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
For more Dark Tower talk, go to Tower Junkies pod. Anyway, and I love Stephen King. With the advent of audiobooks, and I've gotten more into audiobooks ever since January when we had Mike on for our year-end episode, and he talked about audiobooks. Like I resubscribed to Audible. I've been listening pretty much this entire year to different audiobooks, and I'm just going through Stephen King works now with that, and it's just been amazing. And so it's nice to rediscover the greater thing that I love being Stephen King books instead of just the kind of macro of the Dark Tower series, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But so what did you guys think of the adaptation of it this year? Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay, Tiny.
Okay. I really loved it.
Nice.
It was great. I watched the miniseries from 1990 earlier in the week, just as a comparison, and I think it's an interesting juxtaposition watching them next to each other. But ultimately, the new movie is I think superior after only seeing it once. It was a really cool interpretation. They took some creative licenses in some places that were really good ideas, I think, instead of sticking to the book, 100%. I think it was really creative. They made good choices. I'll say that.
Yeah.
The kids were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They did a great job, and it was written well. I think it was, it felt like a very well-paced movie. They didn't throw too much at you at once or slow anything down. It was a really great adaptation. I loved it.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Tony, how about you?
No, I agree with Tiny. It was very well done. I don't have as strong a memories as he does. I haven't watched a miniseries in years. I haven't read the book in years.
I thought you meant for this movie. Like, we just saw it like an hour ago.
I have the memory of a goldfish.
Sure.
So anyway, like you asked, I thought the movie was awesome. I haven't said that yet, have I?
I don't think so.
You were building toward that, and then I was an asshole and interrupted you.
No, it was very good. One thing we were talking about when we left is this is the first horror film I have seen in the theater since Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare in the early 90s.
Right.
Wow. Horror is just not my genre. It was very enjoyable. It was creepy without being. Unfortunately, a lot of the jump scares were given away in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel so. Almost everything you kind of knew was coming, but it didn't detract. It didn't detract from the enjoyment at all. Like you said, the kids were awesome, which is something you really just don't ever say about child actors because they're still figuring everything out. That's not a slam against them. It's just they're kids. They all did a very good job, and it was no Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but it was definitely a good movie.
Nice.
Definitely.
Nice. Matt, how about you?
I really enjoyed it. Like Tiny, I also watched the It miniseries last night, actually. I stayed up watching it. I thought I had seen it, but apparently I had not. I had seen parts of it. So it gave me a really good comparison since I'm still at the very beginning of the audiobook. I also agree the kids were just really good. You would think that they had been like hanging out with each other for years.
Yeah.
And another thing with them, especially, I know it's a horror movie, but I got a lot of laughs from them.
Yeah.
More laughs from any horror movie I think I've ever seen.
Nice.
And how they did Pennywise was, very powerful. I think, it worked very well.
Absolutely. And coming to me, I freaking loved this movie so much. It was like just seeing like just the establishing shots of Derry, Maine is just they captured just the essence of the novel so well. And it was such a great way to kind of bring this at least half of this massive book to life. It really captured the nostalgia of youth and childhood friendships. You really get attached to the Losers Club. And like Tiny said, there are some creative liberties, but nothing that detracts from the source material. It's all done out of love for the source material, and you definitely see how well it translated when you compare it to the book in your mind, at least like I did. You really get a sense of just the camaraderie between these characters. I would think that probably one of the, not shortfalls of it, but it's more the more issues that I have with it, just very much like on the surface, is more issues with the source material. Like Henry Bowers is a little, like he was fine in the movie, but in the book he's not. Let's see, the way that we described it on Tower Drunk is he's kind of a stepping stone villain for the Losers Club,
right?
And like Stephen King kind of has a villain issue that his villains are kind of two-dimensional and everything, and Henry Bowers in the movie was good and strong, and like it was a strong character, but it was not as strong as I would have liked, and that's a problem with the source material. But beside that minor quibble with it, it was just a really fantastic movie. Bill Skarsgård did an amazing job. He was super chilling and menacing, and the visual effects and the effects that were used to kind of show all the different facets of the creature were just really, really well done. I had actually heard on another podcast, I don't know for certain if this is true, but I'd heard that this had a fairly low budget, and I did not expect that from it, because this movie had, it looked just amazing. And kind of my final thought is that as a cat father, I've never been more terrified from a movie before in my life.
$35 million.
$35 million.
This had a $35 million budget.
Wow.
That is
They made
insane.
such good use of
They
that.
really
Yeah,
did.
that's incredible.
Like, they didn't have a ton of CGI, but they used it where it was kind of necessary or where it really enhanced everything.
Absolutely.
Fun fact from the trivia on IMDb, I guess when Pennywise's eyes looked in two different directions, that was actually Skarsgård doing it. It wasn't digital.
I'd heard that.
It used to be a Swedish thing.
Very cool.
Yeah, Swedish. That's crazy. Yeah, that's what I was going to say about. I was actually going to mention the practical effects versus CGI, like Matt said. It was refreshing, kind of, really, to see it, because I think it'd be so easy to do a largely CGI Pennywise, because he's just so, he's literally it is a shapeshifter, and so it could be so easy to just do that, take the easy route.
Make him a giant spider.
Right, exactly. They took the hard route. I mean, he was in makeup for a lot of this movie, and it probably wasn't comfortable for him, and, they made the right route, not the easy route with Pennywise. So that was smart.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny, because I was watching, while we were watching it, I kept thinking I kept remembering that okay, so I have only recently read it for the first time. Listened to the audiobook, and Steven Weber is amazing at narrating it. But that was recently. So it has always been one of my blind spots for Stephen King's work. And after finishing it, I kind of remembered how this production, the news and everything throughout the production of it has been kind of, had been kind of, an issue. It was originally going to be Cary Fukunaga, from True Detective making it, and then he dropped out eventually. And then they had the guy, this Andy Muschietti guy, who had only really done the movie Mama. And I know that there was some issues, or not issues, but there was, and not even necessarily backlash, because it's not really that big of a deal. But when Bill Skarsgård was cast, I at least had the impression that I was like, he seems like really young. Like seemed like such a weird casting decision to me. And I didn't write off the movie, but I kind of thought like, okay, well, I'm not gonna have that high of expectations. And then when Stranger Things came out, and Stranger Things cribbed quite a bit from Stephen King and from it specifically, but when that came out, and that was a worldwide phenomenon, and then we got the trailer for this movie, I was like, yes, this is a perfect confluence of events to really make a very successful and well done movie. And I think they knocked it out of the park.
Was Skarsgård, or however you say his name, was he the first cast for that? I thought I had seen something about they originally casted like this really young guy.
Yeah.
Who was that they? I know I remember what you're talking about.
Where you just look at him and you're like, no, he can't be. He can't be like a crazy clown.
It was the kid from the Millers. We Are the Millers, or Meet the Millers.
That's
or whatever.
right.
He's a ginger kid.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now, and maybe I'm kind of misremembering my opinions of the production, because maybe that's who I'm thinking of. Because I mean, Bill Skarsgård is still fairly young.
Yeah.
He was born the same year that the original was released in 1990.
I saw that.
Wow.
Will Poulter.
Will Poulter, that's right.
Yeah, Will Poulter was supposed to be Pennywise originally.
That's right, and he was just in Detroit, the movie, not the
Yes, right.
But yeah, that's right. He was originally going to be in it, but about partway through this movie, about halfway through the movie, I just kept thinking, like, for a second I was kind of like in the recesses of my mind, I was like, I wonder what the movie would have been like with Cary Fukunaga and how that would have been done. And then as the movie progressed after that, this was probably like a third of the way through the movie that I thought that, and I was just like, I don't care. It's just that good. It's just really, really great. So let's talk a little bit about the Losers Club and the connection between them and how the movie juggles 7 distinct child personalities and puts them together. How did you feel about the feel of the friendship among all of them? Tiny.
I think it was they achieved that, definitely. They definitely achieved that, but I feel like my one little qualm is that the bond between the seven characters of the Losers Club was not quite as engrossing or quite as deep as like even the miniseries, honestly. Definitely not the book, but even the miniseries. I didn't feel like it was even as good as that necessarily. But not to say that they did a poor job or that it wasn't there or that it was completely missing. That's not the case, but I feel like they could have delved into that a little bit deeper. I feel like some of that was missing just a little bit, but all in all, I really can't complain. I think it was well done. The kids all did a great job and they wrote them fairly well. One exception to that, I think, is Stan Uris. Character Stanley Uris was pretty underdeveloped, I think, and I feel like he didn't have a ton of lines compared to the other characters. You know,
it's funny you say that because I think that I agree with you, but also I think that they did a lot more with him than the book did.
Oh, really?
Too. So I kind of liked what they did with it. How'd you guys feel about Stan Uris?
Well, I mean, he wasn't singing with a decapitated head in the freezer.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, I agree with that point.
Yeah.
That he was fairly disposable.
Yeah.
As one of the kids. But I actually disagree with you on the development of the kids. I think they did a better job with this movie than they did the original miniseries.
Okay. Fair enough.
This should tell you how engrossing and should answer the question how I thought Stanley was used. Which one was he again?
He was the Jewish kid.
I was saying this was not. I was not kidding. It's like there's most of them. It's like I recognize the names when they use them, but I'd forget their names.
Yeah,
that's just a problem I have when you have a cast that large.
Yeah,
time
I mean when the central characters are 7 kids, it's hard to differentiate them.
Totally.
You know, and they don't have like very distinctive like Luke, Han, Leia.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Kirk, Spock, McCoy. So,
True.
But no, it's the core group was really good. I mean, some of them just seemed more out of circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, Mike, the last one that joined them. It's like, yeah, cool. They saved him from getting beat up, but then he's going to follow them into what could be certain death. That just seemed to be like a leap.
Yeah, I feel like they missed a little bit, missed a note when that happened. Because in the book, Mike is very indebted to the original 6 of the Losers Clubs. He's very indebted to them, and he's like super loyal to them because they helped save him from Henry Bowers. Yeah. So I feel like they dropped that a little bit. I agree with you there.
And you know, it's what. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it seems like he came in fairly late too.
Yeah,
like it seems like he's just an add-on where I haven't got to him in the book, but in like the miniseries, he's like the anchor of their club.
Right.
And here they just came in real late.
And I mean, you saw him throughout before he joined the Losers Club. But, and touching on you, how they kind of missed linchpin there. I mean, they just brushed it off when he said, now they're going to be after you. They're always after us.
Yeah.
That just kind of brushed it off and kind of downplayed what they had done for him, which made me really kind of disbelieve that, this kid's really going to follow them into creepy, scary, spooky house.
Right.
Yeah. And it did seem a little bit, like a circumstantial thing rather than, developing it kind of properly and taking
But that
time
is
with it.
such a minor nitpick.
It really
It is. It's minor. It
mean,
is. Yeah.
Yeah, because the things that they do with the story that really kind of, like with the text that is so massive, like, for context, I referenced the business cards for Tower Junkies. We got a paperback edition of it that we're going to be giving away at Shocktober in Irvington, and the card fits on the spine of the book. Like, that's how thick this book is. And when you have that much, and of course this is only half of the story, but still, there is still so much that needs to be excised from it, that needs to be rearranged and put to fit the film medium. I mean, this is not a short movie. This is a 2-hour and 15-minute movie, which not that there were any issues with pacing or anything. I wanted it to be another 2 hours and 15 minutes because it was, I wanted to live in that movie for even longer. But yeah, the way that they rearranged some things, like there's certain characters that certain things happen to them in different ways than what's depicted in the books. And I think that in some cases it definitely, enhanced it for me, even from the source material, a tad. So yeah. So I like that a lot.
Nice.
Going with your comment on pacing, I agree with you a lot. Like, I was watching it thinking the whole time, like, I could just keep watching this, where last night I was watching the miniseries and I hit about the 2-hour mark and I'm like, can this please end? Like, I like the story, but it's just going on. It's completely different in the pacing.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm only like halfway through the miniseries myself, but yeah, it's, that, the miniseries itself wasn't, that great anyway, but, but yeah.
You stopped trashing on my nostalgia. There's a reason I'm not rewatching it.
It's important.
You are so making a mess.
I am.
Matt.
Well, it keeps hitting my face.
And then you try to wipe it off your thumb, and then the sound comes through on the microphone. And I'm glad you're editing this and not me.
True. Anyway, so where were we with all that?
Well, I think a lot of listeners are probably curious how Bill Skarsgård's performance measures up against Tim Curry's. Because I think we said it when we were talking about. Did we talk about? No, I guess we didn't really mention Tim Curry as much, but his performance is absolutely iconic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like I said, his performance has been fused into pop culture now, and like that is the quintessential scary clown is Tim Curry's performance as Pennywise. And so I feel like it's almost like a Jack Nicholson versus Heath Ledger type thing with the Joker.
Oh,
yeah,
like that's a really good comparison.
Yeah, people are going to have their preferences, and I feel like you can't. Having seen the movie now, I think my stance is you can't really compare the two. I think they're just two sort of slightly different interpretations of the same character. Just like the Joker was between those two most iconic performances of the Joker. And I don't think we need to pick a favorite. I mean,
Heath Ledger.
Nice. But I'm saying I don't think everyone's going to be. I don't think there's a clear favorite between these two performances.
And it's kind of that is such a great analogy too, because it is not only is it two different interpretations of the same character, it's two different interpretations of the same character in two different interpretations of the source material.
Right.
Because Batman is wildly different from The Dark Knight in terms of tone and just the overall creation of it. Whereas the miniseries, sorry to dump on your nostalgia, Tony, but it's a made-for-TV movie from the 90s. And this is a big-budget, very R-rated horror movie that was done for $35 million.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Which the R rating was huge, by the way. that's what the miniseries was missing. Part of it,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Now, my memory was, and since you guys have watched the miniseries more recently, Tim Curry played more a creepy Bozo the Clown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Skarsgård just went flat out creepy.
Scary.
He was scary, he was creepy, and he also happened to be a clown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas Tim Curry was playing a creepy clown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that I was remembering
Right.
everything correctly. So yeah, like you said, Tiny, I mean, they're both, it's almost like comparing apples to oranges between
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah.
They're both very awesome performances. Tim Curry was one of the highlights of that, made for TV
Right.
miniseries. But yeah, it's hard to compare the two.
Yeah, and I would even say that Tim Curry's is probably closer to the source material too, just because
Yeah.
that's the way he's described in the book. Is
Yeah.
he's Bozo the Clown. He's a creepy Bozo, and it's to great effect both in Tim Curry's performance, which I think elevates the entire miniseries in general, and I think that's what we kind of get with the miniseries is people remember Tim Curry's performance, and it kind of gives them a little bit of a rose-colored glasses about the miniseries.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah.
But this one, it doesn't detract from it that he's just all out, just creepy, menacing clown makeup monster. It's still a really good depiction of it for me.
Now, I would like to point out you keep downplaying the original It as a made-for-TV movie. Which version of The Shining was Stephen King's favorite?
The made-for-TV version that he wrote. Which, honestly, that I actually really like the miniseries.
Didn't Stephen King also say he liked the Dark Tower movie?
He did.
There was no Dark Tower movie.
If they made one, I'm sure he would, because it's stupid for him to say he hates it.
Right.
Like he's going to say he's not, was Alan Moore that says he hates every adaptation of his work?
Yeah.
No, Stephen King, he likes money.
Yeah.
I cannot blame him. I like money.
Yeah.
It's funny, and this is a bit of a tangent, but I read that he is in the process of getting the rights back to several of his works.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, like going through legal channels to get the rights back, and I feel like that's smart on his part, because I think that he senses, and I think the world senses, that he's going through a little bit of a renaissance. He's like right on the cusp of that with it being so successful already, and then he's also got Mr. Mercedes, which is getting some pretty good reviews. The Mist has been pretty good in a TV series, and a lot of his works are being brought back and being adapted. And I think that I kind of see that as him kind of shoring up his treasure chest of work.
Which, by the way, you're talking about how the reception for it has been so good. Didn't it break Deadpool's records for the premiere of an R-rated film?
It did.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, that
It
was
is-
not an easy feat.
I was
No.
looking at Huffington Post had an article that I was looking at as we were sitting here recording that it's on track for about $101 million opening
Oh man, that would be huge
for this weekend. If you
is
search
just domestic?
it just said 101 million.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
probably
I think it's
domestic.
worldwide. I think it's worldwide because right now, well, maybe, I don't know. No, because domestic Friday take was 51 million, so I think that it is just domestic. So really,
Yeah, it
you
just
can-
says end quote 3-day total tracking towards 101 million according to Deadline.
okay.
Wow.
You can really you can also phrase that by saying that it's on track to make its opening weekend be the entire worldwide box office of The Dark Tower.
We could, but we weren't going to rub that in.
We weren't, but yeah.
I was going to say that it's triple their budget,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is
that's
a
true.
pretty good
Yeah.
return on investment for
Oh,
them, which
kidding.
means
Absolutely.
maybe they'll make additional films if it's that
Oh, yeah.
profitable.
Oh yeah, they definitely. Yeah, I think they did just officially greenlight the second one, which is going to be. That's going to be really interesting too.
It is, yeah.
Like I'm very curious because so much of the success and so much of the momentum of this has been that feeling of nostalgia and that childhood kind of bond and everything. Like they kind of capturing the same thing they captured the hearts of everyone that loves Stranger Things. So I'm kind of curious how the sequel is going to go with a 27 years later plot with adult characters.
Well, this one reeled you in.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're hooked. So you need to see what happens on that 27 years later when they come back as adults.
But a lot of people may be hooked to those specific actors.
Yeah.
Also true.
Like, I didn't even know going into it that there was going to be a second one. I didn't know it was just part one. I assumed it was going to be similar to the miniseries where it was, complete, as far as I know.
Jumping off different timelines.
I figured it would be going back and forth, where this one's just the kids. So if they bring in a second movie and they don't have those kids again, people are going to be like, now which one was that? Like, because you already have characters that are pretty non-memorable.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to say this person replaced that person, it might be confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But I think that each kid kind of has a certain identifiable quality to him. Like Eddie's the hypochondriac, Stanley's the Jewish kid, Beverly's the girl, Bill Stutters.
Mike's the black kid.
Mike's the black kid. Richie is the funny one.
Right.
Which, man, like Tiny and I have talked on Tower Junkies. We reviewed the book recently. How Richie Tozier as a character is one of our favorite Stephen King characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Stephen King has a really good knack for creating characters that are on the surface kind of comic relief, but also being like a good tether for the audience to kind of root for the characters and the situations and everything. Like a lot of people's favorite character in The Dark Tower is Eddie Dean, who pops up in book 2 and on. And he has that same kind of quality. He's a comic relief kind of character who is kind of commenting on the funny or the absurd nature of the situation and stuff. And that's kind of something that Stephen King does really well, and especially with Richie Tozier, who he is providing this comic relief. And they did slightly age up the characters. They were 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
Or probably like 15. In the books, they were like 12?
They're like 11 or 12
I think 11 or 12.
Yeah.
I think 11, yeah. But I didn't think that was a detriment to it. And also it jumped from 58 to 88. Or I think 89.
89.
89. Which I didn't think was an issue either. And I think that let's talk about that a little bit. How did you guys feel about the setting of being in the 1980s? And do you think that, knowing that the book is set in 1958 and 1959, how did that change work for you? Did you think that was a good idea to have it 89 and into the present day for the sequel, or would you rather it have been the 50s?
I'm going to be honest with you. I had forgotten that it's originally. But then again, when it came out in 1990, it would have made sense for it to start in the 50s and then end in the late 80s.
Yep.
So for this film adaptation, it makes sense for it to start in the late 80s and come up to present day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't see anything that nothing was detracted from that. It was a change that made sense. And that's probably part of why they could keep the $35 million budget.
Yeah.
Is because they didn't have to totally create something from the 50s.
True.
They had to recreate from the 80s.
I agree. And my only problem with that time change is that a 6-year-old kid playing with a paper boat in 1989 is a little far-fetched.
Yeah.
I was like, he'd probably be sitting at home playing Atari.
Right.
But that's a minor nitpick, and I think it worked fine. I feel like the story has to, move with time. You can't, I think to update to have something in 1958 and then to the 80s, I feel like a lot of people would just kind of be like, why? It doesn't necessarily need to be that way. And I think it's for budgetary reasons, it makes sense to have, the sequel set in present day. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I think it would isolate a lot of people, like a lot of the younger crowd, if they did it in the 50s now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they definitely want to pull at the strings of nostalgia.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that makes a lot of sense also. So yeah, I didn't have any problems with it either. Yeah. Let's see. So we're, what else can we say, like, in non-spoiler for this? For it?
Yeah, I think that would go more spoilers, kind of, because I kind of have a feeling about the tone.
Mm-hmm.
and whether or not I really consider it horror.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but some of the things I think would deal more into spoilers. So,
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Well, I think the most important thing before you go into spoilers is to decide. I was reading about it in the miniseries. The hair on the clown was actually Tim Curry's hair.
Oh,
They just dyed it. I think it's the most important question to know. Was this actually Skarsgård's hair?
Wow.
that's a good question.
I highly doubt it.
I doubt it too, but yeah, that'll keep everyone in suspense while we go to spoilers. All right. So if you haven't seen it and don't want to be spoiled, go ahead and pause the episode and come back when you see it.
When you're a kid, you think the universe revolves around you. You think that you'll always be protected and cared for. Then, one day, you realize that's not true. Because when you're alone as a kid, the monsters see you as weaker. You don't even know they're getting closer. Till it's too late. Here. Take it.
Yeah, and spoilers on for It 2017. So, spoilers. What did you guys think of the more horror elements? And then we can talk about the overall tone and everything. Yeah, did this movie frighten you guys?
no.
No?
Really?
There was no point where I normally, little insight into me. I have anxiety issues.
Mm-hmm.
There are shows like, those awkward sitcom comedies make me anxious. A lot of horror films, when I see stuff happening, makes me anxious. Except for, Eddie's broken arm.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing in there that made me squeamish, that made me anxious, or anything like that. That's not saying the movie is in any way a failure.
Yeah.
I love the heck out of it. But it just didn't come off as a horror film. And I might have, because I've, stuff like Final Destination and Saw and all these have been labeled over the past so many years as horror films. And this isn't like one of those type of films.
Yeah.
So that could have just been why I've gotten jaded over some of the stuff like that. And I'm also, just as I've already said, I'm not a huge follower or fan of the horror genre. I'm more a sci-fi geek, sci-fi and fantasy. But yeah, I was honestly expecting to come in and I scarfed down my popcorn so I didn't jump and spill it on any of you guys. I was making sure I was using the cup holder at all times. And yeah, nothing, like I said, all the quote unquote jump scares were actually used in the trailer or were telegraphed by the music. So.
Wow. I thought it was pretty scary, actually. It's not like I was shaking or but my heart was pumping for a few scenes, especially down in the cellar.
Yeah.
When Pennywise kind of runs after Bill and, the scene in the room with Richie and it's just the clowns.
Yes.
That stuff I thought that was pretty scary. There were a couple times where I was like, holy crap, this is actually, and just in general, I'm not scared by that kind of stuff personally. Like if it was a bunch of aliens, I'd have been shitting my pants. But that didn't, just personally, it didn't scare me that much. But in general, for a general audience, yeah, I think it was pretty effective.
Wasn't there somebody down below us that yelled out seriously or something like that during one of the?
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Something.
I think when Richie goes into the room and you see they're all covered, I think someone said oh no, or oh, like it was very much oh no, kind of like a very exaggerated thing. That was enjoyable. I liked that.
Wow.
Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Tony on there. I don't know if it fits the horror genre. I think it's not like a lot of the horror movies where, the Saws and Final Destinations and things that he mentioned, where they try to just do the jump scares. But this one, it's one that's going to leave more of a lasting reaction on you. when you're in a situation that may be a little scary, you go down into your own cellar, or you go into that, it's going to be in the back of your head that, you saw that one scene where Pennywise comes out of the water, and it's going to scare the shit out of you.
I have a 100-year-old house with a murder basement. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's a completely different type of horror. Like, I agree. I don't know that it fits the horror genre, like, boilerplate there, but it does give a sense of horror to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anytime you guys plan on like going spelunking down a sewer drain, I mean that's gonna change how you feel about that. For sure. But yeah, I thought, it's interesting. I felt like the horror elements of it, like Tony said, they telegraphed a lot of the sequences, and that's not, in my opinion, that's not to the detriment of the movie. That's just like a good set dressing, good set, like build up and everything. So when Richie goes into the room on the house on Neibolt Street, like they've set the stage for that. He sees the missing kid flyer. They establish that he's afraid of clowns. They have everyone shrouded in covers. Then slowly they reveal the clowns and then the coffin. It's all these elements that come together, and it's really well done. But I didn't have nothing sent shivers down my spine. But that's not as a fault of the movie or anything. It's just I was more invested in the characters in the movie and wasn't too concerned about the horror spectacle of it. Having said that, the set pieces, especially the house on Neibolt Street, that whole sequence was really well done because they have Eddie, Richie, and Bill go into the house, and then Pennywise slowly isolates each one of them, and each one has a different ordeal. And the way that the suspense and the violence and terror just crescendos and builds up into a crescendo, that it's really remarkable how it was done and the effect that it had on the rest of the movie, really. Like, that sequence was probably one of my favorite sequences of the entire movie because of those factors. And and then it also just made me laugh because when the kind of lava-esque liquid is coming out of the mattress, in my head, I just kept thinking like, oh, the floor is lava.
That's exactly what I thought.
I thought it was like a boiling acid.
Yeah.
It might have been, yeah.
I'm not
But
sure.
you know, when all you have going through your head is the floor is lava, it becomes lava.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. That scene in particular, the first entry into the house on Neibolt Street was extra scary, especially when Pennywise pops out of that was just a cool effect scene, I think. Yeah. Pennywise coming out of the old refrigerator. That was, man.
Oh, that was very cool.
That was very
all
scary.
Up.
Yeah.
Did anyone else get the scene, like when Freddy was isolated with the clowns and they had all the covers on? Did anyone else think, like, when they went to pull off the covers that it was going to be like the angels from Doctor Who?
Oh, wow.
I don't know why that popped in my head, but I was like, huh.
Honestly, I thought it was going to be the missing kids.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
So,
I like the idea of the weeping angels, though. That's good. I like that. Yeah, that sequence was amazing, and I like that they face off against Pennywise himself, because in the book it's different. I won't spoil it or anything, but it's different. I like that Pennywise is like I guess I don't have any issues with it, but I like that they made Pennywise more Pennywise and less shape-shifting.
Right.
Like there were some, like they included like the leper, and then they had the thing with Stan in the painting. But I like that Pennywise was such a pivotal factor in the story and the terror. Yeah.
Totally.
Did they do anything? I remember in the miniseries, and I'm starting to get to the point in the book where they're mentioning like the silver coins or the pieces of silver that they eventually flung at Pennywise's head in the miniseries.
Right.
They didn't do anything with that I can think of.
They kept focusing on the bicycle.
Yeah, I guess that was. But that was because, like, Bill would always be, like, running away saying, hi-ho, silver.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember, it's been years.
Yeah. I just saw it last night, so I was curious. Like, in the book, there's a guy going into a bar, and he leaves silver dollars. In the miniseries, it's chunks of silver? I don't even remember what it was, but they use a slingshot.
Yeah. Well, in the book, don't they melt down half dollars.
They
That's what I
do
thought they
to
did.
make it like they were trying to make bullets, but then they eventually made slugs that they would use a slingshot. And I
Right.
think the reason that they updated it to just the bolt thing for the sheep or whatever, lambs, sheep, Are
Sheep.
those the same thing?
You. I know that's bad.
Yeah, that's probably going to get cut. Anyway. No, and I think that the reason that they use the bolt instead of the slingshot is that I feel like, for me, and granted, to preface this, I was born in 86, so what the hell do I know? But I feel like the slingshot is more like a 50s kid kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like, I can't think of anyone in the 80s like having
Right.
like, oh, slingshots.
I made my own slingshots, but
Did you?
yeah,
Nice.
I'm a little older than you, but not as old as Tony yet. But I was
Screw you all.
It's taking a beating in this recording.
I was also thinking like that the logical thing to do would be give them guns essentially, but I think a lot of people that would cause a shitstorm for PR
Yeah.
if you had kids with guns.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I think they found a good middle ground with the bolt thing, because it's a gun, essentially. It's
Yeah.
just-
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, what did you guys think of, we can talk more in more specifics about this now, Henry Bowers.
Pretty,
Go ahead.
pretty dark. I mean, he obviously is a dark character in the book, and he's deeply disturbed. I mean, he has intentions of killing the Losers Club. I mean, this is, a teenager who wants to kill kids. So he's arguably almost as dangerous as Pennywise is, it. So I think they did a pretty good job, capturing him in this movie. I think in the miniseries, he was a little bit, the actor was a little off base. I think it was just a little over the top, but I mean, he seemed like almost more tame in the miniseries, but in this version, he was full on psychopathic
Yeah.
Henry Bowers. And, we actually got to see him carve the H into Ben's
Yeah.
stomach and stuff like that. And, they kind of cut a corner there in the miniseries. And so I feel like they went as all out as they could pretty much with Henry Bowers. And I was pretty happy with the result.
Nice. You guys?
I have no opinion because I didn't remember the character, so I have no
Okay.
basis
Sure.
for him. Was he taken out by the kids in the book in the series, or did he
No.
return?
He did
later?
return.
In the
which-
miniseries, he came back. He was in
Yeah.
a psychiatric ward.
Yeah.
And then he came back when they were all in like this little inn or motel, and he crawled in through a window, and then he stabbed
Mike.
Mike. Yeah, he
Yeah.
stabbed Mike, and then they ended up taking Mike to the hospital and all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. In the book, it's different from that, but he does appear in the 1985 or 86 storyline in the book, which it's interesting because the way that he's dealt with in this movie, it seems like he's not going to come back.
Yeah. But who knows?
Which is kind of
Because, he hit that wall
Yeah.
kind of hard when you saw him drop.
Yeah.
There was a bed under there.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry. Like, it was a very soft well.
Well, remember, he went down and they all float.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they-
true.
True, yeah. What did you guys think of Pennywise's lair down underground?
That was kind of weird.
It was interesting seeing them literally floating.
Yeah. Which
Yeah,
is
I liked that element too.
removed from the book. There's never any, I don't think there's any description of that.
I don't think
no.
so.
I think floating is kind of like just a scary thing that he says,
Right,
and
'cause with the just talking about the balloons and stuff. I like that they made that tie to it in the movie. That the kids are floating.
Right.
That's a nice payoff to that, I guess.
right. I didn't see it coming. I mean, I
Me neither.
didn't expect them to take that literally, but I thought it was cool. I mean, I thought his lair was really cool. In the book and in the miniseries, it's just kind of like a cave.
Yeah.
It's kind of nondescript. But in this, it's like, it's part of the sewer system. Like he has like this structure he built, and it's his house, it's his lair. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought that
I
was a
didn't
good
see
choice.
it as like something he built. I thought it was just where all the drains kind of came together and flushed down all the crap that people forget about. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there were like chairs and stuff, and I don't know how a chair fits down a drain, but it's kind of where like everything just kind of gathered at the end.
Right, that's true. But then he had like that kind of structure that was in the middle.
I
where
didn't. For some reason, I didn't think he had built it. I just
could be. I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
It
I
could
don't
be
know
what's
either,
holding
yeah.
up all the floating kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? But
You see, I viewed it as like all this stuff because you saw a lot of tricycles and bikes and kids' toys all around this circus wagon for Pennywise the Dancing Clown, and I kind of viewed it as all the stuff he got as he grabbed the kids.
yeah, that's probably what.
That's what I was thinking.
That's probably true.
I see what you're saying, Matt, but that's kind of how I was viewing it. It's like, this is just where everything from his years of grabbing children and ending people, that's just where it accumulated. So,
Plus, like, things like the ironworks explosion and the different explosions and stuff, like, there's a lot of debris and stuff that I'm sure is part of that too.
Right. True.
But yeah, I really liked the layer, and I liked how it's just enhanced the overall thought of Pennywise as in it as a creature, like being part of the history of it, and the floating part of it was pretty interesting. Now, how did you guys feel about the lack of history about it as a creature? Did you think that the Pennywise and it were? Did you want to have any more background on what the monster was and everything? Because there's some of that in the book, a little bit, which I actually really enjoyed. But it wasn't in the movie. Did you guys feel like? Did you have any questions or issues with that? Don't interrupt me, dog.
we happen to be by a pet store, so of course there's going to be a pup or two barking. Honestly, I mean, they touched on not as much as they did in the books, but they touched on enough to let you know that this is a recurring thing with this creature, with this whatever it is. It was I felt they touched on it well enough. They didn't dwell on it. They found a nice happy medium, if you will.
Yeah, it's a typical problem with Stephen King adaptations. You have to cut somewhere, and they kind of cut that stuff out. And I loved all that stuff in the book. I thought it was so great, but it wasn't absolutely integral to the story. And I think, I think, like Tony said, they touched on it enough here and there to where people get it and they understood what that this is a. I don't think they quite tapped into the idea that it is like eternal, which in the miniseries he actually says that. He says, "I am eternal." Yeah. And I don't think they quite got to the same depth as the book in the miniseries. But it was substantial enough, and I think it.
And they have room to expand on that in the sequel too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And also people that really want to know more, like I really want to know more, but I didn't feel the movie was lacking. But since I want to know more, I'll just go read the book. Right. For the movie, it wasn't a huge portion. Like, you didn't have to know all the backstory about it. They gave enough for it to be whole for most people. And then, people like me that want to know more, we'll go read the book.
Sure.
Right.
Well, actually would have worked very well with this. You guys remember the Blair Witch Project?
Yes.
And how they did all the build-up about the history online and
like
with the website
stuff.
and the books and all the viral. This would have been a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
The history of Pennywise, the history of Derry, Maine.
That would be cool for the sequel. Like doing like kind of an...
They could do like an ARG.
Yeah, exactly. Like an ARG and have like different history things. Because a big part of the interludes in the book are all history of Derry, Maine and the different events and stuff. Like that could be really
marketing. Good. We want to see this. Make this happen. Marketing. If you find this podcast, take that. I'm not even going to say, "Hey, I told them to do that." I know. I know nothing. I just want to see this happen.
I know. I know there's people at Warner Brothers who listen to us. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good God, those dogs are.
Thinking of the dogs, going off of what you were saying about the cat earlier.
Yes. Okay.
At one point, Henry is looking like he's going to shoot a cat, and
my heart was in my throat.
I was too. And then I look back and think, I could give a shit if one of the kids dies, but the cat is important to me. And I'm like, I feel like I'm a bad person, and probably like I'm a recent parent. Like I'm like, maybe I'm a bad parent too. Like, but I'm like more worried about the cat than any of the people in the show.
Sure.
Yeah, you're awful people. I'm a dog person.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he's not
you
the mascot.
You call that a dog?
If it had been a Shih Tzu, I would have been crying.
Right. But yeah, when I get home, I'm gonna hold my pizza roll.
Oh God.
But anyway, one kind of leapfrogging off of that is that the Henry Bowers and Patrick Hockstetter, who in the movie he is dispatched with pretty early and pretty easily. I really liked that sequence where he's chasing the losers and he goes into the drain pipe place and he's I kept thinking like that would be a pretty cool way to evade like bullies if you just dressed up in like dead kid makeup in like a sewer and scared the shit out of him. But then he ends up getting killed. And that's different from in the book. And that's one of the changes that I really enjoyed, was that one of the things that I really liked about the book, or about the adaptation, is that in the book he is depicted as like he's like the like real like sociopath of the Bowers gang, and he is like he's the one that like kills animals and has, you know, gets his jollies off of that. But one of the issues with the book that I had was that it's kind of an afterthought in the book. Like he's kind of developed, he's kind of introduced kind of late and then dispatched with pretty quickly after he's introduced, and it just kind of seems like that could have been trimmed out. But in the movie, they kind of took him as being like, as being kind of just a member of the gang and everything, and then they kind of transplanted some of his sociopathy over to Henry, and I think that worked really well, especially when you see that he's, you know, prepared to kill this cat, and then he goes and murders his father. It's a really good change for the movie that made the character of Henry Bowers more formidable and less two-dimensional. So I guess what I said earlier about kind of having him being a lacking villain, I think overall I actually enjoyed his characterization in the movie and his arc in the movie. I just wish that there was a little less ambiguity about whether or not he's going to come back, because I think that the sequel should have him in it. But we'll see, I guess.
We didn't see a body.
Right.
True.
Also, when he did kill his father, did anyone else think, like, the spring in that knife must be a really strong spring?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, they should have had him, like, click open the knife, because it's a front-loading knife, like,
Right.
like, you know, traditional switchblade, and they should have just had him, like, slit his dad's throat or stab him in the heart or something. But how because it kind of zooms in on the knife, and he just kind of pushes the button, and the hand doesn't move at all or anything, just, you know, shink right into his throat.
Right. Most people don't understand modern spring-loaded knives.
I don't think
Most
I have,
people
like, a
don't
big...
think like that.
Yeah.
Most people don't think, will this knife actually pierce a throat?
They won't.
There's a reason why my back's not completely against the wall right now.
But also with Henry, like in the movie, they had like the dead eyes and his hair turned all white. In the books, was that a thing, or was that just for the movie adaptation, the older one?
I don't remember if that's in the book or not.
So I haven't got that far.
I want to say that his hair does turn white. I want to say that that's the case.
Did they do any dead eyes in this movie? I didn't see any other than just the glint of silver in the eyes.
Well, I mean, Bev,
Oh,
Do you think was that what it was considered?
because she saw the deadlights.
I guess that's true.
Yeah. So, and there were no mention of the deadlights, but they
There
showed them.
wasn't. Right.
Or I guess
right.
deadlights, not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think in the book, does Stan, or no, I think it's Richie looks into the deadlights when they attack
I think
it
that's right.
as kids.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's going to be Stan, because Stan was the only one who was all like literally attacked and like almost eaten by it
Yes.
in the movie.
That's
I mean,
true.
Eddie had his arm broken, but that was just kind of a result of falling. But like Stanley Uris was about to be eaten and killed, and so like I wonder if he caught a glimpse of the deadlights during that.
I would not be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I
don't
thought
know.
at that point that he was just completely dead. I was like,
So did I.
Okay.
I thought-
I didn't-
too.
Yeah, I was like, man, that's a bold choice.
Yeah.
Just killing him right now. Yeah.
Right.
And then what's interesting is they leave the room and the floor is back 100% fine.
Oh yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
And to kind of go back about the spring-loaded knife and everything, also you can kind of explain that away by saying that Pennywise probably gave it a nudge too.
It's true.
Sure.
Could be.
I mean, it's a minor issue.
Yeah.
I just was curious if anyone else thought the same thing.
I
Yeah.
did. I thought the same thing. Okay.
And I kind of thought it was funny because you can kind of sit there and think that it's you can kind of think that it's an issue with that, or when watching it in the scene, you can think like, okay, maybe they're just kind of trying to, trim the budget. Maybe they don't have the budget for a big set piece, and then cut to just blood pouring out all over his body. That's
Blood's cheap.
it's a nice.
I mean, it was still effective. It was an effective
absolutely.
scene.
I liked,
yeah.
speaking of blood, I liked the blood coming out of the sink. That scene
That was very
in
cool.
this movie versus the miniseries.
Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, in the miniseries, there wasn't a whole lot of blood because it wasn't rated R.
Right.
Like, they
True.
never cut the H on the stomach. They never
Right.
had a lot of those because it had to be on TV.
Yeah.
So they probably were limited as to how much blood they could have.
It's true.
Yeah.
It was very satisfying, I think, to see that it was like they went like over the top in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any casting choices for the adult characters in the sequel? The Seinfeld the Seinfeld podcast called Signcast shared a picture that was a bunch of actors from Seinfeld just like in boxes, and then it said "it" underneath it, like that they would be the actors to play it. And I'm not doing it justice, but like Jerry has it's a shot of him with like really goofy glasses to kind of be like Richie, and it's really funny. I shared it to the Facebook page, or I think on Tower Junkies Facebook page. But yeah, check that out. I'll put the link in the show notes and everything. But it was really funny. Do you guys have any actor choices for the adult characters?
I think he's too old now, but I actually thought Jeremy Piven would be a good Richie Tozier.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Jeremy Piven's a little too old now, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I can see that.
You don't like Jeremy Piven, yeah.
I don't. I
know.
Anytime I see him, I'm like, he just looks like such a gaping asshole.
Yeah.
I think maybe Richie's just the one because he's kind of the most out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like immediately I come up with a couple people, like I, for some reason would think like Billy West for all his voices and crazy things.
Oh,
like,
that'd be
because he did a
interesting.
lot of voices in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of did the same thing. But then also part of me, like, wants to see nostalgia and have Seth Green come back.
I
that'd
would
be
love
cool.
that. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
that'd be
think
pretty cool.
my fiance Paige and her friend from work who were there, they were talking, and they think that the actress who played Beverly, I forget her name, she looked similar to like a young Amy Adams.
Oh yeah,
Cool if
she
Amy
did.
Adams played Beverly Marsh.
What if they had Molly Ringwald come back to play for the adult version?
That would be pretty
That would
cool.
be good. I think it might be a little bit too old as
She
well.
might be,
Yeah.
but I mean, since she's even like properly referenced in the
Yeah,
movie.
that'd be awesome.
Jared Leto in all the roles.
Nice.
Oh, that is a perfect response.
Him as the clown, he's just got tattooed hair everywhere.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and to kind of backtrack a little bit, what did you guys think of Beverly in the movie? I thought she was incredibly charming.
Yeah, she was.
And I totally got the kind of connection between the characters and everything. Like you can see how like those characters could like just fall in love with her, and then also just I don't know. It seemed like having that kind of genre, or not genre, but gender kind of thing, where it's like girls hanging out with guys. It can be very awkward for the movie. In the connection between all of them, the chemistry is what I'm saying. And I think they did it really, really well. Yeah.
I would like to say that I'm not sure if you guys noticed the first interaction.
I know exactly what
between
you're gonna
Beverly
say.
and Ben, when they're throwing the New Kids on the Block references back and forth, and she walks away, and he waits just a pause too late and throws another one out.
Yes.
And then explains himself. I looked over at Matt.
He did.
And I just did the whole point at my eyes,
Yep.
point at him.
And I was like, I can't even argue. That is exactly.
That's
I thought that was really
Yes.
clever and kind of a funny running gag almost.
right.
I mean, it's only a couple times, but it's two's running, right?
Yeah. That was 3 times because
It
she
was-
mentioned
was
it when they were patching
Yeah.
him up in the alley, and she's like, "Do they have
Oh,
all
that's
the
right.
right stuff?"
Yeah.
That is
That
a
was
third-
hilarious.
That
So many
was
people
awesome.
didn't get that too.
I
know.
loved
Because
that.
I laughed audibly, but like a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
other people didn't in the theater, so that was clever.
That was great. And then the poster.
The poster behind the door was
So
amazing.
great. Yeah.
He's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, no, please don't, please don't.
So great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we can kind of start winding down a little bit here. What do you guys think overall? Any other thoughts on the movie?
I actually have one more thing, and I want to see if this was just me or if you guys caught it too.
Sure.
Right after the scene where they get Mike down in the tunnel with them, was it just me or was that a really awkward cut to where all of a sudden stands by himself?
Yeah, I didn't know where he had gone. I didn't know he had gone anywhere on his own, and then all of a sudden he's just showing up alone.
I
Yeah.
agree. That was sloppy. I was like, wait a minute, why is he there? They didn't show him going there or anything. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really register with me, but when I see it again, I'll probably notice it for sure.
Because it's definitely going to be seen again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If I saw another movie twice, I'll definitely see this one twice.
But remember, the second time was with me,
That's true. That's true.
but none of you other slackers.
Right?
I couldn't do it. I just couldn't.
I know, it's okay.
Sure. Sure. So where does this rank with you with movies for the year, horror movies in general, Stephen King adaptations? How do you guys feel about this movie overall? Any other parting thoughts?
Let's go and start with Tiny.
Yeah, it's going to be in my top 10. I can't imagine it won't make it into my top 10. And part of that is bias, because like I said, it has become one of my favorite books. And I think this was a very good adaptation of the book. So it's going to be in my top 10. It's in my top 5 right now, probably. I really liked it. And, I think I keep comparing it to the miniseries because I watched it recently. And I think what I liked about the miniseries is that they actually did both storylines at the same time. Yeah. And I think, like, that miniseries is kind of, it's campy as all hell and it's not great. But I think they balanced that super well in that miniseries, and I almost missed it a little bit during this movie. I kind of missed it just a little bit, but I understand the logistics of it are really difficult, and they couldn't. This is just a different interpretation of it, and I didn't have a big problem with it. Sure. But I think when they release the second one, and you can sit there and watch them both back to back, or take them in as a 2-part movie, I think I'm gonna like it even more. So I can't wait for 2019 or whenever they release that second one. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, this is not my preferred genre. Right. I mean, I'm looking over the films I've seen this year, and I'm looking at stuff like Lego Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy, Wonder Woman, Cars 3, Spider-Man Homecoming, and The Dark Tower.
Oh,
wow.
So, obviously, these last two are ones that I have gone to see because of starting to do these group viewings.
Sure.
So you're breaking me out of my preferred genres and breaking me out of, the rut, if you will.
Nice.
Of mainstream comic book movies.
Sure.
That being said, I'm glad I went to see this. This was very, very good, very enjoyable. Like I said, I think I'd built myself up to a bunch of jump scares, a little bit of gore, stuff like that. And, it's not to say there wasn't any blood.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, Georgie's end was not pretty.
Yeah, we did not really talk about that, but that sequence was amazing.
They went all in on that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So his end was not pretty.
Yeah. Right.
But it was, it was not overdone. Everything, they went overboard with the blood in the bathroom, but you really needed to for that scene. But otherwise, it was very well done. It had found a nice balance. It was well written. It was well acted. For the most part, beautifully shot. Like you said, the vistas and the scenery and all that, very well done. Some really interesting angles used, especially when they were shooting Pennywise.
Yeah.
So stuff just, like the whole dancing in his, trailer scene when, Beverly first met him in his lair, that whole off-kilter look, and I'm making hand motions, which once again we've talked about before how well that translates to audio. But very well done, and definitely looking forward to the second part to see how they wrap it up.
Nice,
sweet. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Tony. I'm not a big fan of the horror genre, but this is my type of horror movie. I thought it was really well done. I too really liked the camera angles, the off skew, and then also they did something where like the camera would almost like stutter and get closer and closer each stutter, and it seemed to work really well. I really enjoyed it. Looking, I don't watch as many movies as you guys do, but it's up there with like this year for me, like Guardians of the Galaxy and couple others. Like I'm really happy I saw it.
Nice.
Really enjoy it.
Nice,
sweet. And yeah, it's it's going to be close to the top, if not like it might be my number one right now for the year. I just loved this movie. It captured the spirit of what makes Stephen King's novel and his work in general just really great for me. And it was just a movie that was 2 hours and 15 minutes long and just felt like I just really wanted to stay in that world and continue watching a bunch of kids get killed. But yeah, it was really spectacular. Very, very well written, very well paced, very, very incredible, visual effects and yeah, it was great. I'll, definitely have it up toward the top of my top 10 at the end of the year. And, so as we're kind of winding down, that's about it for the review. Do you guys want to share, like, where we can find you online? Or if you want to publicize that, Matt? Yeah.
I don't really have a huge online presence. Sure. You don't need to. Well, I do. I have more of one than I'd like, but I don't need to put that out there, I guess.
Gotcha. Especially talking about what you do for a living.
Yeah, what I do for a living, I try to keep a fairly low profile.
Sure.
So, no, I don't have any place. I mean, if you Google me, you'll find tons of things. Some that I'd rather people not see. But
Done.
Sure. Yeah. But I don't really have a
It
blog
sounds like you work for like an escort service or something.
Yeah, I know. I guess now it sounds really bad.
Or you work for the CIA or something.
Yeah. No, I just break stuff.
Nice. Tony, do you want to give your whole spiel?
Once again, this is Tony Troxell from Indiana Geeking. You can find me by pretty much Googling Indiana Geeking, and you can find my Twitter feed, my Facebook page, my Google Plus account, the Geeking Shop. You can find just about everything. Make sure, if this comes out before the end of the week, make sure you go to nuvo.net and nominate me for the best local Twitter feed. Or don't. I really don't care, because it seems like Nuvo doesn't this year. Moving on.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this podcast and joining us for the screening and everything. And yeah, I really hope that we do more of these kind of group screenings and everything. So we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
And, anything else? Anything
You're
else?
welcome for the recording equipment.
Yes, and thank you for setting up the recording and everything, Tony.
Yeah.
You are a great asset to us.
And if these start getting bigger, I'm going to get the add-on for this eventually that we will be able to add 2 more microphones to 6 tracks.
Nice.
So,
oh, that's awesome.
Man.
It's only like $60-$70.
Only.
Air quotes. Only
Yeah.
$60-$70.
So
That's about a month and a half of Patreon for me. How's it for you guys?
that's not, I was just gonna say,
Hashtag humble brag.
I was just gonna say, go to Tony's site and click feed the blogger, but fuck you now.
And how you're talking about the group meetups, it'd be a really good time to probably pimp out the Facebook group.
Yes, absolutely. Go to facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer and join our Facebook group. It's a lot of fun. We have nice little discussions and everything. Basically, I like to post in there whenever I remember that I have a Facebook group, and then we get responses. It's a lot of fun. It's nice. Yep. And also check out Shocktober in Irvington, October 6th at the Irving Theater. It's a group screening or not group screening, but it's a one-night event screening of short horror films from local filmmakers. It's at the Irving Theater. We're going to have a lot of great prizes, a lot of great filmmakers. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tickets are on sale now. Go to SHOCKTOBERINIrvington.com and buy your tickets. Yeah.
Nice.
And anything else, Tiny? Anything?
Is there any promo codes they can use to
Oh, yes, you can use promo code podcast1 to get $1 off the admission. Thank you, Tony.
And is there going to be prizes available if people show up?
A bunch of prizes. We actually have really good prizes set up this year. We have a bunch of Funko Pops. We've got a great, we have copies of great party games like Buy the Rights, which you can hear us play on the podcast several episodes ago. I'll put a link in the show notes. Also, the other game, MovieBuff, which we had the creator of on for our Indy PopCon episode. I actually just saw them at Horror Hound last night, and I stopped by and just said hey to them and everything. They're doing very well, and I hear that Tommy and them over at By the Rights are doing very well too. So
they had a great Gen Con from what I saw.
That's awesome.
So awesome.
It's great for them.
So awesome. So yeah, we'll be giving away those prizes as well as paperback editions of It, The Shining, and The Gunslinger. So go to SharktoberInIrvington.com, buy your tickets, podcast1 promo code, and I think that'll do it for this episode of The Obsessive Viewer.
Yep.
Thank you guys for listening, and Tony, thank you again for setting up the recording and everything, and Matt, thank you for coming to the screening, and also thank you, Tony, for coming to the screening. And for actually pushing me toward doing these group screenings. Like, this is kind of your idea.
These are fun. I think we should do more of these.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. So, all right. Well, having said all that, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Tickets are on sale now for the 4th annual Shocktober in Irvington, presented by the Obsessive Viewer podcast. Join the hosts of the Obsessive Viewer on October 6th, 2017 at the Irving Theater for a one-night event screening of short horror films, including the premiere screenings of the latest film in J.P. Leck's cross-medium Elsewhere World universe, the latest film from Snapshot Productions, and much more. Come celebrate the horror genre in the historic Irvington area and meet the filmmakers with live Q&As after each screening. You can also win DVDs and Blu-rays, movie-related party games, horror-themed Funko Pop figures, gift cards to Irvington businesses, and so much more. Tickets are on sale now at SHOCKTOBERINIRVINGTON.com. All proceeds go directly to the Irvington Historical Society. And whether at the Irving Theater or in your nightmares, we will be seeing you on the 6th of October.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or anywhere else podcasts are found. If you'd like to support the show, the best and easiest way is to leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. More ratings and reviews means it'll be easier for people to find the show in the highly competitive film and TV podcast genre. It also provides us with valuable feedback on the show. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a one-time PayPal donation at obsessiveviewer.com/donate or become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for recurring donations with different reward tiers. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, notebooks, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can also buy other great TeePublic designs in our store, and we'll get a small commission on the sale. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP, Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes, and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. We love to hear from you guys. You can contact us by emailing podcast@obsessiveviewer.com or by tweeting us at obsessiveviewer, at obsessivetiny, and at IamMikeWhite. You can also like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer, where you can take part in discussions and polls between episodes. For more podcast content, check out Anthology, Matt's solo podcast, where he's reviewing The Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer and exploring other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows. You can find Anthology at anthologypod.com and anywhere podcasts are found. For book lovers, you can check out our sister site at obsessivebooknerd.com for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the app of your choice. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.